How often have you reflected on the meaning of life? It's a fascinating question when you get asked this. What is the meaning of life? What is our core objective? And I feel like there is no right or wrong answer necessarily. We're all on a journey, we're all trying to find our path. And you would have heard common expressions like, enjoy the journey, not the destination. Destination's not as important, which I guess would be like the view if we were to, say, climb a mountain. When we get to the top, you get a stunning panoramic view, which may well be the reward that you were seeking when you climb up the mountain. But if you think back to the climb, there were a lot of struggles, right? There may be points where you slipped and you fell down a little bit. Hopefully your harness caught you. There could be points where you felt like giving up. It's like, man, this mountain's too tall. Why am I even bothered climbing it? There's a smaller mountain there. How do I even know this is the right mountain? There's so many questions that come up, so many challenges. But I would argue that on this journey up the mountain, that is life, the meaning that we try to find in our lives, we all develop one core thing, and that is skill. More specifically, mastery of skills. Now, drawing a comparison here to maybe a video game, in any given video game, you get a set number of skill sets that you can develop, and often you have to allocate points into those skills. You can't just master everything, or eventually you do when you clock the game. But until that point, you have to choose very selectively which skills, right? You've got to hone in on those skills. And once you master that skill, you've done it, you've got it, you've unlocked the full potential of that skill, which is great. And I guess that's what we're trying to do in life. That's why we learn things. That's why we have to go to school, university, or even additional training programs. There's usually a skill that we seek to develop further. Now, why am I talking about skills for the meaning of life? Well, I believe that skills are really important to keep us focused on where we are trying to go. Now, talking about who am I? Why would you want to listen to anything I have to say? Well, I'm Dr. Rikus Buerta. What do I represent? What kind of doctor am I? Where did I study? Why do any of those things matter? Well, putting it simply, I have to take you back again into ancient times, the ancient Greeks, particularly Aristotle. Now, Aristotle gave a very nice framework for, shall we say, the art of persuasion. You may have heard of it. There was telos, kairos, pathos, logos, and ethos. Now, if you're confused as to why there are two that you may not have heard of, you have to go back to more original documents. Don't read just the advertising information we see today. Telos is purpose. And I would argue that having a purpose might be the single most important thing that we have to do in the modern world. We need to know where it is we're going. The next very important component is that of kairos. The Greek term kairos refers to a somewhat complex concept, but the idea is more or less translated to setting in the modern day frame. But Aristotle, being a very wise philosopher of his time, also included time, because he realized that in order to persuade people, you also had to reflect on what was going on in their mind at that point in time. So the here and now, what is happening in the world? There's fears of recession. We still have this lasting pandemic that just doesn't go away. Well, less news coverage these days. We have the war in Ukraine and Russia. We have lots of financial pressures around the world with, I guess, inflation and a bit of a living crisis. And lots of other challenges like global warming beginning to really pull out hand, flooding, shortages of certain foods. There's a lot of challenges going on, and then we have these artificial intelligences popping up like ChatGPT, who may well eventually become this full-blown intelligence independent of human intelligence. If we're not careful, that could happen as well. So setting, very important. Reflect on what's going on in your audience's mind when you try and persuade them on a topic. Now, the other three I'm sure you've heard of before. Pathos is emotion, logos is logic, ethos is credibility. Now, why would I refer to these when describing myself? Well, these are, I'm going to say, like a compass. They guide our decisions in life. We need to have purpose. If you don't have purpose, you are literally drifting around without direction, and you will go wherever the wind may take you. So very important to have purpose, otherwise you end up where you may not want to end up, which could be a spider web, who knows? Gotta watch out for those black widows. Now, the next one is setting. Why would you want to reflect on that? Well, I guess it's understanding your environment and maybe understanding the limitations upon your environment, which I guess is mostly time. We have a limited amount of time. We have to allocate our time wisely in order to make the best use of the limited life that we may have. Hopefully, it's a very long life and eventually may become unlimited as we become more immortalized through technology. But for the time being, absolutely, use your time wisely. It's very limited. Next one's emotion. Being able to understand emotion and understanding our own emotion could be a really important thing to reflect upon. Logic, being well-founded in logic through everything that we do, I think has a core benefit. And the last one, which I think is really important, is credibility. So how do we decide the credibility of a person when we first meet them or perhaps interact? Well, I'd like to rather go for the show, don't tell approach. But very, very simply put, PhD biomedical science, been studying for far too many years, and since finishing my studies, been honing my own skills. I've been skilling up on mentoring, skilling up on communications, skilling up on reaching full potential. What I came to realize at the end of my studies was that our mission is that of impact. We have a limited amount of time. We need to choose how we want to spend our time to have the maximal amount of impact. Now, in order to have maximal impact, we need to be able to have skills that will be of benefit to others. So thinking about it very logically, the skill we develop through our educational pathways translate into our value in society. So people will dictate your ability through more or less the skill and what you have on offer through your skill. So Paul, let's say YouTube channel. You make a YouTube channel. If you want to be successful, you need to convey something to people, and I'm going to argue any of these would be great candidates. Maybe you make a channel that's based on logic, conveying some sort of logic to people. Maybe your channel is all about credibility and you're trying to say, well, you're a wealthy investor and these are your secrets. Again, you're passing down your knowledge or skill that you've gained through whatever your past experiences were. And then there's emotion. Or maybe you're trying to teach people how to better manage their emotion, how to work their way through life. Or maybe it's time, setting, and purpose. Now, considering all of these together, there is a fundamental conclusion, which is that of how do we ascertain the maximal impact? Well, this is me living out my own philosophy. I call it Areteerga. What is Areteerga? Well, it's a contraction of two Greek philosophies or two Greek terms. Origin. Now, two phrases. Arete is the idea of reaching your full potential. Now, this is really important, and there's a lot of other philosophies that can build upon this core concept, but I think the best classic modern-day example of this would be Maslow's hierarchy. Hopefully you're familiar. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, very simply, contains the following. Well, what is the highest level of existence? It's self-actualization. Now, inspired by this core concept, this idea that our core mission in life, or at least a very fulfilling mission in life, is that of reaching your full potential. Dragging that in to the term arete, we've created a term that is meant to inspire individuals to reach their full potential. So what is erga? Well, erga is broadly translated to work or deeds. That's living out the philosophy that is reaching your full potential. But why? Why do I have the need to do this after doing so much study? Well, core thing that I realized, particularly in the last 5 years of my experience, is that this is something that is really, really important, and we need to address that early on in life, because the habits that we pick up early in life are the same habits that translate through later in life, and habits aren't something that we are taught from an early age, or at least we're meant to pick these things up, but we often miss them. Now, to put this simply, there are, shall we say, different types of skills that we need to master. What are the two types of skills? Well, I'm sure you've heard of them. There's hard and soft skills. Now, hard skills are technical knowledge, things like your PhD in biomedical science, or whatever your PhD is, or your bachelor's, or your PG dip, or your diploma. Doesn't matter what the qualification is. The end result is a hard skill, knowledge, technical, and expertise within a very narrow field of focus. So we get really good at a certain thing. Now, what I find really fascinating when I reflected on this was that on this journey, there is a second skill that we develop that is not graded, but that does heavily impact our grades. And I will stress, we gain our hard skill through a grade. Do we manage to gain high distinction or not? That wasn't it. There's a hidden component in the background of our qualifications that no one seems to talk about, or at least there's not enough emphasis, and it actually has a huge impact on your learning. And I would argue there is a lot of people who have a need for this particular skill, but it's just not out there, right? You got to go to YouTube videos in order to find this information. That's probably why you're here to begin with. But the idea is soft skill. So broadly speaking, what are soft skills? They are, shall we say, traits. Think of the classic, the curriculum vitae, which I will point out comes from ancient Greece as well. But this idea of a portfolio that you craft specifically, and I love the section where you have to put down your personal traits, like what attributes make you the right candidate for the set job that you're applying for. The classic here is team player, critical thinking, hard worker, diligent, good of time management, good of deadlines, able to manage people well, able to deal with criticism. There are so many of these alternative components that come in here. But what I find fascinating is none of those are graded. They're not the skills that are graded for our technical qualifications, but yet they are instrumental in our ability to attain them. So we do absolutely develop these over time. The problem here is there's no set method for improving them. Now this inspired me, and yes, there it is. It all started with a motive to create a system that can help us to very quickly ascertain our full potential. Now it's a bold claim because, full potential, that's very, very subjective. That's going to look different for every person. True. That's why I went for a system that applies, should we say, methods that can help us to ascertain our full potential quicker. The sooner we are able to adopt these, shall we say, soft skills into our learning, the higher our chances are of achieving the highest possible potential, including that of reaching your goals from an early stage. Now, talking about goals and skill mastery, my core goal when I was studying, before starting my doctorate at least, was that of becoming a doctor. That was the mindset I had, and the whole way through high school, first year of uni, and so forth, that was the main goal. But I fell short because I didn't quite manage to take the correct subjects when I was at high school, and then I had to do a lot of catch-up in first year university, which I managed to do, but the consequence of the catch-up was that my grades weren't as high as they needed to be, and it's a competitive space. There's a very limited amount of positions to get into med school, so I didn't manage to get into med school. End result was, okay, backup plan, we'll do another qualification and then apply as a postgraduate student. But then I enjoyed what I was doing so much that I carried on. Backup plan, Doctor of Philosophy. End result, you become an incredible critical thinker. You're able to solve problems really, really well, and you develop skills that maybe you wouldn't be able to develop otherwise. Now, these skills are fantastic because I can look at a problem, conceptualize it, and very quickly come up with lots of creative solutions for the problem. And that, I guess, is what you're developing throughout this journey that is your technical qualification. But a lot of it is a soft skill. There are lots of subtle details in the background that I just wish there was a way to boost them, because if you boost those early on, you'll be able to achieve much, much better purpose. It's almost like getting the blueprint for the mountain and finding where you get little shortcuts, where the shrubs are maybe not as tough to get through, or where someone else has passed through before, creating a little bit of a walkway through the mountain. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to give you the blueprint to the mountain from my perspective after years of study, and more recently helping over 1,000 students with their learning journey. If you're ready for the journey, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, hit notifications, make sure you stay tuned, because we're in for a bit of a bumpy ride, but by the end of it, I'm sure you will walk away with mastery of skills, and mastery of soft skills in particular, giving you the ability to set those goals and actually achieve your goals. Got a custom planner just for achieving goals and setting goals. Understanding your motivation, not just motivation, because motivation, I think, comes secondary to your motives, the drivers behind our decisions. So you'll learn how to master your motives and your motivation that comes once you set your goal. You'll also learn time management. Now, time management's subjective. Yes, there are billions of potential possibilities for how to manage your time better, but lots of little strategies that'll help you to do even better. We can also work on study skills, these study strategies. And again, there's an entire hidden curriculum behind it. Every person we meet that teaches us something, whether it's a teacher, lecturer, tutor, mentor, coach, whatever this role may be, they all pass on little, should we say, soft skills, little strategies that we adapt into our daily lives. Now, I've got a collection of these that I can also pass on, and scientifically, those have already been ranked by a lot of different research articles in terms of which ones are really effective and which ones are least effective. And it'd be great if someone would point out, oh, by the way, don't do this, don't do that, but do these because they're really effective. Subscribe, I'll teach you how to do it. And there are so many other things we need to work on. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Join the community that is Are-Teer-Ga. We will refine who we are to reach our full potential. See you on the next video.